All right. Welcome, everyone. This is the Virtual Packwalker Summit. This is the last lecture of the week with a very special speaker tonight. We have Kim from Chasing the Wild Hikes. Kim is someone who has really done something special with her walking service. And, there's lots of pack walkers who do either on leash or off leash. And Kim really offers a hybrid of both, training dogs to be really sensitive, getting mastery on the leash before they even come off leash, really working on relationship, giving them both instinctual fulfillment and the structure that they need to succeed at home. And so, without further ado, I'd like to give it over to Kim. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you here so you can hop on and take it away. Go. Did it work, Kim?
There we go.
Sweet.
It's a little lag there. Well, hey, everyone. It's good to see everybody. So I'm Kim from Chasing the Wild, and I just wanted to talk a little bit today about my story, how I got started in the dog training world, really in the dog world. It's been kind of an ongoing process over damn near 20 years now. So I started off as a vet tech. My roots are in veterinary medicine, and I worked in that field for about 14 years before I transitioned into the dog training field, essentially. So a little bit about me. I grew up on a farm in Iowa, so I'm a total farm girl. I spent a lot of time out in nature, just running through the fields. I had probably 30 farm cats. We had pigs. That was what my father farmed, and then we had a pack of dogs, essentially. So, of course, growing up in like the 80s and 90s, we did not spay and neuter our animals, so they reproduced a lot. So we had a whole bunch of dogs, a whole bunch of cats, and I essentially spent my time running through the fields with my dogs, with my cats, barefoot in nature. And it was the most connected that I've ever felt in my entire life until I started my business. So when I graduated high school, I knew for sure that I wanted to work with animals. Animals have always been a huge part of my life, and I knew like that's where I wanted to be. That's where I wanted to evolve and grow with, right? I knew that dogs and cats and animals were just going to be part of my life. I have a whole bunch of them currently, cats, dogs, chickens. If I owned my own property, I would probably have goats and horses and the whole caboodle. I would have all of the animals. So animals have always been a huge part of my life. So when I graduated high school, I went to vet tech school and I followed the traditional route. I wanted to be a veterinarian, but that's a lot of schooling and a lot of debt, and I did not go that route. So I went and I was a vet tech for about 14 years, and it was okay because I was working with animals. I was connecting with people. I was helping dog owners and like just pet owners in general reconnect with their dogs in a different way and kind of think about their health and, making sure that there was that bond in that sense. However, there was like a huge gap for me because I started transitioning kind of into like holistic medicine for myself and my own personal pets. So when there was a lot of clashing for me in the vet field. I had to get out, basically. I'm like, this is not working for me anymore because we see, this is two different viewpoints here. I ended up working part-time with a holistic vet, and she's still a great friend of mine. She's also still my vet for my own personal animals. But I worked part-time for her, and I decided to move out of state. It didn't work out, and we ended up moving back to Iowa. And I had like taken an ER vet tech job, and the area that we moved to was just not vibing for me. And I'm like, I can't be here. I have to go back to where I feel safe and secure. So we moved back, but I didn't have a job. I was working super part-time for this holistic vet who's, she's amazing, but I barely was getting any hours. So I had to do something. And she had some clients that were like, hey, we could use some dog walking. We could use some doggy daycare. We could use some pet sitting services. So I just started to do that. I just went with it. And my business was born right then and there. And I haven't stopped. That was nearly 8 years ago. And I'm so fucking happy that I didn't stop and I just kept going because it's just a breath of fresh air every single day of my life. I get to be outside in nature with dogs, connecting and helping people reconnect with their dogs in nature too, because I feel like it's a huge missing piece in what we're doing in this field. I feel like we could be connecting more with nature and bringing the dogs into those spaces more to kind of help fulfill and kind of balance out their energy. So, what I've noticed with working with dogs and with their clients, and I live in a metro area, so I'm not like in a rural area as much as it may seem in my videos. I do live in the middle of a city, so it is pretty busy here, and a lot of dogs are not getting fulfilled in a sense. They're just living in suburban neighborhoods. They're stuck in their house the vast majority of the day because their owners are, of course, working jobs, or they're home with their dogs, and they're still not getting fulfilled. They're getting quite the opposite. So when I started my business, I was doing it in my home. I had the dogs coming to my house. I would walk them to a local dog park, and we would just kind of do that. I noticed when I was doing that, however, that the dogs were not really truly being fulfilled. They were being almost overstimulated in that environment. They weren't getting exactly what they needed. Even though they had a big yard to sniff in and, do all the things, there was a piece that was missing. And I had seen a couple pack hikers online who were taking dogs off leash in nature. And I was like, that looks really cool. I wonder what that would be like. And I had been doing it already with my own personal dog, Piggy. Like, she was an off leash trained dog pretty much from the get go. We lived on a farm after all when I first got her. So off leash was kind of, you know, how she lived. So we started just taking small packs into the woods. Dogs that were staying with us, that were boarding with us, or in our daycare, we would just like take some solid dogs and we would just go off in the woods with them. And holy shit, the energy shift in those dogs when we would do those type of activities, as opposed to just the neighborhood walks, or if we were hanging out in the yard, it was tremendous. And I was like, my husband works with me, my husband Ryan, we're kind of a team as far as like the business goes. um but we noticed, we're like, do you see the shift in them, that we would come home and they would just be completely relaxed? There would be not any kind of overexcitement or anything like that. Like, the dogs would just be completely just vibing. And this was without any structure. This was pure chaos of just like, we just let the dogs out and just run, sniff, pee, poop, like roll in dirty shit, go swimming, just have a good fucking time. Right. So we would take them out in these spaces and they would just, be dogs for a bit. And we'd come home and they'd be happy and rested, and we wouldn't have to really worry about them the rest of the time that they were staying with us because they got fulfilled. So obviously it's kind of shifted and transformed since then, because I've recognized the need for a lot of structure when we're doing activities like this. Of course, like, things happen. We've had dogs almost run off, and we've have found them, but early on it was kind of scary. So I learned a lot in those moments of like what not to do. I wish there would have been something like this when I was starting, so that I knew, like, what should I not be doing? Because holy shit. We use GPS trackers on new dogs that are coming in, because I think it's really important to keep track of those dogs. And there's a lot of structure before they actually get that freedom, as opposed to when I first started, I'd just be like, I trust you. And I'd take the leash off and I'm like, oh, fuck, what have I done? We can't do this. So now I've kind of evolved the program into a space where I can bring in dogs that have problem behaviors, and my pack in nature helps balance them out. Okay. So a lot of the dogs that I've been working with have been with me, some of them upwards to like 6 years. So we have a really strong relationship. We have a really great line of communication. They have gone through all of the levels of me, of my personal growth within the pack, and like they've seen it all. We've done it together, we've grown together. So these dogs really help me with new dogs that are coming in. So I can take dogs that have reactivity, some that have aggressive behaviors towards both dogs and humans. And I can take them in the pack and bring them into a space, into nature, and work with them where they're at and help transform them and really rebalance how they're feeling. And it's fucking crazy sometimes to see because I don't even feel like I'm even doing a whole lot other than connecting with the dogs, meeting them where they are. I cannot stress that enough. Is meeting them where they are at, respecting where they're at, and just taking your damn shoes off with them and feeling nature together and really just letting it all go. Every bullshit problem that circles through your human brain, if you could just let that go, take your damn shoes off and go through the forest or through the prairie or on a beach or a river or wherever it is that you can find nature, because it's everywhere, right? Even in our big metropolitan areas, we can find spaces of nature to reconnect with our dogs. Is it always going to be a space where you can have them off leash? Probably not. It's not always like that. I'm really fortunate where I live, where one, I have an acreage where I can a private. Let's stress the importance of having private land to do something like this, shall we? Um, it's really important to have a space where you can take the dogs off leash and not stress. I cannot say that enough. Being able to take them to a space where you can take them and not stress. So, not worrying about another dog running up, not worrying about some random person hopping up on the trail. The biggest concerns for me is wildlife and vehicles, because we are still in a metropolitan area. So, there are areas where if a dog would run, they could potentially get hit by a car. So those are my biggest stressors. But because we take the time to make the connection with the dogs. So let's talk. I'll talk. I'm all over, but that's okay because I did not plan. I'm just like, I know what I want to talk about, and we're going to go there. So with my program, I'm working both with the client and the dogs one on one. So we do private sessions with the clients so that we can help them set their dogs up for success. Part of their homework every single week when I'm working them is to take their dog out in nature. That's part of their homework. I literally make it a requirement, like you have to go put your dog on a long line. If your dogs, most of them are not off leash trained right away. So put your dog on a long line and actually go out there with them and connect. Don't have a whole lot of expectations other than don't pull my arm off, right? Like that's my rule. Don't pull my arm off. Let's have a conversation out here in nature. So I make sure that they're doing that on a weekly basis throughout the program. And then I also am picking up the dogs once a week and I'm taking them out with me one on one for probably about 6 hours, where from pick up and drop off, with taking all of the dogs out and just connecting with them. We do a lot of leash work at the beginning of our walks. Sometimes, some days we don't do it. And the reason why is because some of the dogs are just so balanced and they know exactly what the expectations are that we don't have to put a leash on them. Now, a lot of times, like every time that there's a new dog in the pack, however, that expectation changes. So we will leash everybody up on those, unless it's a dog that I know is going to stay in a follow and I don't have to worry about it anymore. I'm like, you're good back there. I don't have to stress about where you're at because you know the routine. If it's one that's kind of like, oh, somebody's here that's going to push the boundaries, I'm going to push the boundaries a little bit more, then that dog's going to be on a leash too, because we need to make sure that everybody is flowing at the same pace so that when we are teaching this new dog, like they know what the rules are of the walk. We don't pull ahead. We don't act obnoxious. We don't romp and try to play with our neighbor when we're walking down the trail. So I really make sure that we're getting tapped in on the walk before we actually go out there and let the dogs off leash. So I don't do a ton of obedience when I'm out there because I don't really want it to be like that for the dogs. I want it to be us connected with nature, tapping into pack drive, allowing them to go into prey drive, letting them do all of the things that they were designed to do. I have a lot of different varieties of breeds in my pack. So I have GSPs and you'll see them just going crazy, just trailing out in the field, just trying to find all the birds. And I let them do that. And I have a different expectation for dogs like that in the pack. I let them do what they're supposed to do. Now, there are also the dogs that want to stick right by my side because they don't have as much confidence or they need a little bit more support or they prefer to stay in pack drive. And I'm totally okay with that too. And then I have the dogs that want to romp around a lot more, right? They want to wrestle with their friends, but I don't allow a lot of that excitement because I am working with a lot of dogs that are working through reactivity, they're working through potential aggression issues. So we tend to keep the energy really low in that sense. We don't want a lot of defensive behavior. We want to keep things nice and chill for everybody. So it's really important though for me for them to have those opportunities to do the dog things. I want them to sniff. I want them to roll in stinky things. As much as it's disgusting for us humans, I'm like, oh, you want to roll in that shit right now? Cool, because I have a dog shower set up in the van to hose your little punk ass down. So I don't have to smell it on the way home. And, they'll get sticky burrs in their fur, and I have to brush them out and take that time to make sure that they are okay after the hike. But I don't care about any of that because they are getting so fulfilled in those moments that it's worth everything to me, and even the owners, I'm like, I'm sorry, I can guarantee, I don't have any guarantees in my business, but I can guarantee that your dog is going to come home dirty. 100%. And everybody's okay with it. They're like, I have clients, they come and like, was it a swimming day? I was like, yes, it was. And they'll just like, all right, let's go to the hose. And they'll take their dog back to the backyard and hose them down. And it's just an understanding that I have with my clients, and they know that I'm going to take care of their dog and fulfill their needs and make sure that they get everything that they need. So when I come home with a dirty dog, they're like, hell yes, my dog had the best day ever. Right. So I really just try to push that for my clients, for them as well. So ways that I incorporate that for my clients is I take them on nature adventures too. So some of our private sessions, we go on hikes, like we go to a trail and we work on off leash recall with them. If I do a lot of community events for my clients too. So sometimes we do pack walks in urban areas, but other times we will take them to a trail and we'll work some long line work, or we'll let the dogs off leash if they're e-collar trained. Sometimes I'll take them out here to our private property that we have, and we'll let them come out here and exercise their dogs. Sometimes we even do trail cleanup events where we get everybody together and we pick a trail that has a lot of trash on it and dog poop, and we'll go out there together with our dogs, let them off leash, and they're doing their thing while we're like literally cleaning up trash and dog poop. And it's the best. I get some of the best turnouts from those events. It's so cool. I love to see the community come together and just like, let's clean this shit up. We actually adopted a section of a river here locally for cleanup, which is great. And it's just like really cool ways that we can give back to the community and also just keep people connected and attached to nature. And my clients love it. Like they're like, this is so cool. They love getting out there with us. Another cool event that we do is we do stand-up paddleboard and kayak events with our clients in the summer months. So we're actually doing one later this month where we just encourage them to get out there. If you've never done it before, cool. Like we'll help you, guide you through that process. If you don't get in the water with your dog, that's cool. At least you tried and we had a good time. But everybody always ends up on some kind of flotation device out there with their dog. So it's always a lot of fun. So we just try to find ways to reconnect the people and their dogs and bring them into nature together to kind of help rebalance that energy. So yeah, that was kind of what I got about what I'm doing with clients in nature. And yeah, do you guys have any questions for me?
I was like, I already have some. One, I'm just like, I cannot wait to come shadow you at some point and just really like watch and admire how you work and transition from like on leash to off leash. And I think one of my questions was like, do you find that there's any big differences between creating a sensitive dog on leash and creating a sensitive dog off leash? Like, do you think there's like a vastly different training or is it pretty similar?
It's extremely similar. Like it's all we're just using pressure regardless. And with the leash, we're using more physical pressure, but you're still using a lot of psychological pressure. So it translates over pretty smoothly. You just have to use a little bit more psychological pressure to remind them like
Sure.
what the rules are. I always joke with my husband. I'm like, I'm acting like a dog out here. Like I'm literally just mimicking the behaviors that they're doing and they just understand it. It's kind of cool to
Totally.
see.
That's awesome. The other question that I had was there was a moment where you were talking about like when you're sometimes doing like a community event and your clients come out, you'll let them off leash if they're e-collar trained. Are all your off leash dogs e-collar trained?
No, not all of them. It
Okay.
really depends on the dog and their personality. And a lot of times I'm doing it for the owner because they don't have the same follow through that I do with my pack. As like when I have the e-collars on the dogs, it's just there for backup. Like
Sure.
it's a seat belt, essentially. I train everybody on it, not everybody. There's some dogs that just they don't need it. I have
Sure.
probably a handful of dogs that absolutely don't need it, but it's mostly for the owner's sake, right? Like I want to make sure that they feel comfortable and confident with their dog out there, and most of the time they don't unless they have some kind of backup. So I help them
Totally.
out with
It
that.
just, yeah, it sounds like it just creates some more reliability for them on their end until their relationship is like 100%, you know?
Solid. Yeah. Yeah. Because it's
Thanks.
totally different. The relationship that like I form with the dogs and the owners, it's not the same. Like they live with them every day. Like when they come to me, it's the same every single time. The rules are the same. I don't ever let up. It's structure all the time. I joke with my clients all the time. I'm like, my dogs are assholes because I let up sometimes and I'm not always a dog trainer and I'm not always, consistent with them. So I'm like, it's okay if your dog's not perfect. That's not what I expect. I want you to just keep building that relationship and get out in nature together.
Totally. Yeah. Like sometimes I talk to my clients, I'm like, look, I have the luxury of being paid to be consistent. So like that gives
Yes.
me a certain energy when I
Yes.
come in. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do
Yeah.
it.
Every time. Exactly.
Different motivator.
Exactly.
If you were getting paid to be consistent, you might work differently too.
Yeah, exactly. I relate to like my clients sometimes. I'm like, what do you do for your job? And they're like, they'll tell me, I'm like, okay, well, that same energy, apply that to your dog because they need you to be that consistent and they need you to be that authoritative figure in those moments.
Totally. Totally. I think I had like one last question. And so like when you first started out, you were just kind of like it was more like free for all. You were taking dogs off leash. There wasn't like a ton of structure. Was there like a moment when you were like that like was like a catalyst for you that you were like, okay, I think I could be doing this differently? Was there something that like shifted that, or was it just like generally you're like, I feel like I'm missing a little something here?
I definitely felt like I was missing something, and I just kept having dogs that were just overexcited. Like there was just so much excitement, and like we were using public trails a lot back then, and we would encounter people. Nothing ever really happened, but it was just uncomfortable. Like I'm like, oh, sorry that six dogs just rushed you. I didn't mean for that to happen right now. And I didn't like the energy that was happening. And something that I recognized in those moments is how much I was actually training clients' dogs and was not getting paid for training clients' dogs. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm doing a lot more than my pay grade here. What's going on? So we
Totally.
shifted some things in the business, a lot of things.
Right on. I was like, I feel like I could ask you 50 more questions. I'm gonna be quiet for a second so someone else can pipe up if they have anything to say. Let me go ahead and unmute it.
Cool.
Unmute everybody so we can potentially go. So if anyone would like to chat or ask a question, now would be the time.
Hi, Kim.
Hello.
Quick question. So When when you add like a okay, hold on. I'm trying to like formulate what my question was there because I was listening to Rachel like all her amazing questions and I was like I kept forgetting what mine was. But um what okay, so when you add another dog, okay, so you add a new dog. So somebody has inquired and they're like, "Hey, I think I'd like my dog to join your program."
Yep.
And they have joined. How long usually does it take until they like fully integrate and then you start adding another dog? Or do sometimes like you might have like two or three new dogs at the same time? Or do you mostly just stick with like one new dog at a time for X amount of time?
So I run my programs, it's like an 8-week program, and I take
Oh,
in
okay.
usually about 2, sometimes 3 new dogs each session. So 2 to 3 dogs every 8 weeks. And then I hike 3 days a week. So I space out those new dogs. I'll put one new dog in each day so that I don't have too many new dogs. And
Okay.
say like if a dog is coming in and they have like serious reactivity, I always meet the dog first before I bring them into the pack, but say they have like severe reactivity or something like that, or they've gotten into a dog fight before. In those situations, I will do little micro packs with my personal dogs and then work them up into the big pack. So it might take 1 week, it might take 2 weeks. It depends. I don't think I've had a dog go longer than 2 weeks before they needed to go in or before they could go into the actual pack. Um, Otherwise, if it's a new dog, I will bring them right into the van, right into the energy of the pack, and
Mhm.
they're on leash, and all of the other dogs are tethered in the vehicle, so there is some control. And if I'm bringing a new dog into the pack, there's always two of us. So my husband and myself are always in the vehicle at those times. But we'll just bring the dog in, let them do their greetings in the van, unless, like I said, unless it's like a dog that has like some serious behavior issues, then we're going to take it a little slower and work them with my pack first.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. I was just curious about yeah, how you integrated and how many you did at a time and stuff like that. So thank you.
Yeah. I try to keep it like one, sometimes two, depending on like I have 2 new labs in the pack right now, but they kind of like their programs kind of overcrossed a little bit. So one had been with us for like 4 weeks before we brought the other one in, and they're adorable together. I'm like, I'm so glad that we integrated you two together because this is great energy.
Oh, totally. Yeah, that makes perfect sense for sure. Awesome. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
The family canine asks, what were things that helped you transition the pack the most from on leash walks to off leash?
Hold on, what was that?
One more time. It
Okay.
was, what were things that helped you transition the pack the most from on leash walks to off leash walks?
Really just taking my time. That was the biggest thing, was just slowing down what I was doing and just having trust also is kind of a huge thing. Patience and trust. I would say those are the 2 things that have helped me the most when I'm transitioning from the off leash to off leash. Really trusting the dogs that I'm working with. And sometimes it happens pretty quickly. Like one of the labs within like I think 2 weeks, I had him off leash, but it was because we just were vibing. We had this, I can't really explain what it is. It's a connection with the dog where you're just like, oh, you're not going to go anywhere from me. You have full trust in me. I have full trust in you, and I can drop this leash right now. And the fee collars also. That's a that also helps with the transition process and being in spaces where I know that there's not going to be a lot of people, dogs, wildlife. I intentionally am choosing trails and areas where I'm not going to run into fucking people. I don't want to. You know, that's not what my goals are with the dogs out there. My goals are to let them be dogs. And if I can't do that if I'm on a trail that's busy, I can't do it. So if it means me driving 30 minutes out of the metro, I'm going to do it. Are we going to be in the van longer? Yeah. But I make sure that we have enough water, we're cool, they have everything that they need, and then we're good to go. So that's kind of how I do that.
You're just getting lots of love in the chat. I'm not sure if you're reading it live, but everyone's
I
just saying
am
how
now, and now
awesome
I'm
you
like,
are. Sierra asks, what band do you use?
what band? I have a ProMaster 2500. It's a Ram ProMaster. My Ram band. You know, I was gonna do maybe I'll do it sometime this week. A van tour of like, so you can get like a view of my setup and how I kind of have it going. I haven't done one of those for a while. I did them a while back, but it's kind of changed a little bit.
Awesome. Okay, I have another question. So are there certain, have you come across dogs where you're like, this dog is not appropriate to have off leash, period? Like, are there cases where you're like,
Yep.
this is not a good fit? Like, I would not recommend this dog get the freedom off leash. Is it just like a liability thing? Like, what does that look and feel
Yes.
like for you?
Yes. So I currently have one dog in the pack that will forever be on a long line because she's taken off on me before. And she did it after, like, I was like, girl, we had a bond go. Like, what did you do? Prey drive. She went after, she caught a scent and she was like, peace out, I'm out. And the owner she's not into e-collars. So she's not going to e-collar train the dog. So I'm like, okay, that's fine. We don't have to do that. But she's going to stay on a long line because I'm not going to risk losing her. Because I love her
Sure.
and I cannot imagine anything happening to anybody in my pack. So,
Yeah.
you know, those type of dogs. And if I have another dog, she's kind of flighty, but she hasn't taken off on me for literally years. So I trust her a lot more, but she does wear a GPS tracker and she drags a line because I'm like, well,
Yeah.
you never know.
Just in
So,
cases.
yep, I do
Totally.
have a few of those dogs, but I don't turn dogs away unless it's not a good fit energetically. Like if the dog is too rambunctious or they're causing too much chaos in the pack, or if they're aggressive, if they just are not
Not
vibing and
social.
getting,
Yeah.
like there's some dogs that, like my own personal dog, it doesn't get to go with every pack. Like she can't. She's a pit
Yeah.
bull. She doesn't fuck with some dogs. And I'm like, you know what? I have to
Yeah.
honor that. I have to honor where you're at, but there is a pack. I actually curate it for her because I want her to be able to experience that. And she enjoys the dogs that are in that pack. Like she really vibes well with them. So Wednesdays she gets to come with and
Nice.
enjoy her pack because she does well with those dogs. But I
Sure.
recognize that in her and I recognize that in other dogs too. Like you can't always vibe well. Like I try to curate my packs based on geographical location for convenience purposes because I'm picking up a lot of dogs. I need to keep them kind of close. However, I will move dogs around if I feel like they would be a better fit for a specific pack. Like I make sure that they are vibing well with who they're with.
Sure. Okay, I have another one. I'm sorry. I feel like this is like my personal interview to you. They're just coming through, but so I think it would be valuable if you shared a little bit about, like you said, if some dogs are too rambunctious, and so like you have a service that is meant to evoke and fulfill like instinctual, like what would be the line for you? What does too rambunctious look like? That's like not instinctual, not fulfillment, but actually just like not a good fit.
Stuck in defense drive. So if they are constantly feeling the need to romp with other dogs, it's not a doggy daycare. I don't want dogs to just be constantly doing that. A little bit's okay. If it's like low energy and they're mutual and then they go off and they're sniffing and doing something again, that's fine. But if it's a dog that is like too hyper focused, then I'm gonna just be like, we're gonna have to do something and either change who they're with or maybe they don't hike anymore. It really just depends.
Totally. We had another question here. The family canine asked, any favorite pre-walk rituals you'd like to help set the vibe for you personally
Mhm.
and or for the dogs?
Yes. So I like to, before I get to the pat or get to the trail, like after I get the last pickup, I start playing some pretty chill music, some some frequencies, and I'm just like vibing out with the dogs, like both for myself and for them. And then I also, depending on the day, not every day, but some days I'll also do like a quick meditation where I'm just checking in with myself and making sure that I'm in the right mindset, the dogs are in the right mindset. If you ever watch my stories, you might see me like do like a pre-walk video of the pack and they're just all just chilling. Like they're not hyperventilating, they're not panting a lot, they're not like excited back there. They're just like most of them are sleeping, taking like their pre-walk nap basically. And it's very intentional because I want to set the tone for what we're doing. We're off leash and a lot of excitement is just gonna it's just gonna escalate. And I don't want that vibe for my pack.
Mhm. If I can just go through and read you some of your compliments. My chocolate lab Sophie is attached to Kim as a
I
current
love
client of
Sophie.
Kim's. As a current client of Kim's, I can attest to her incredibly transformative business. The connection to nature and holistic life with our dogs has been the best. Also, our dogs love the hikes and the community events.
Oh, I love
Thank you,
Jessie.
Kim.
She's so good.
Thank you, Kim. So cool to hear your story and how you're running such an epic pack in nature. Love it.
You.
Carol says Kim is amazing. Kim has worked with Marigold and I extensively on living with my elderly mom and elderly neighbors. We do still go on hikes as well. She has helped me and helped she's helped me help Marigold to be calm and gentle around elderly people.
Marigold's the best, and she's staying with me right now. I love her so much.
And we have Go Kim from Dylan.
Thanks, Dylan.
And then we also one more question from Jesse. You maybe answered this in the beginning, but how often do dogs need to participate per week? Also, how many walks and hikes do you do per day?
So it's a minimum of one hike per week. So I want to make sure that we have a lot of consistency. And then I do one hike a day with the pack, and then I hike 3 days a week. So pretty consistent on that. And then with my own personal pack, however, that's a different story. So with my own personal pack or dogs that are staying here with me, we hike on the property probably 3 to 5 times a day, just depending on how we're feeling. And that's not a long hike. It's just we're strolling through the field, letting them sniff, do their thing. I have to say that I have the calmest energy of dogs that I've ever had any time in my life. And it's simply by like, let's go through the field and have a good time. Let's just sniff, let's go do our dog thing. Like they're all sleeping, napping right now. It's perfect.
I love that.
And I have 6 dogs in my house right now, and you would not believe it.
That's the way to do it.
Mhm.
All right. Any final questions for Kim here? Kim, you've just been killing it. So amazing. Loved your lecture, and you've been really just giving a lot of beautiful feedback for these questions here.
Yay. This was fun.
Shauna says, thank you.
I was terrified to do this, but it was actually kind of fun. So yay.
Yeah, you seemed like you're super in your flow and really enjoying it. And I think it's safe to say that I and everyone else really got a lot out of this. It
Cool.
looks like we don't have any other further questions, but I just wanted to thank you again for donating your time and energy, coming in, sharing a little bit of your magic with us, and letting us see how you do things.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you all for joining me.
Thanks, Kim. Hope you guys all have a beautiful weekend. Tune back in next week. We'll have more virtual lectures, but this is it for this weekend. Take care, guys.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks,
Bye.
Rachel.